Hi, it's Alina here, and our master Elena is at work. While I was in Moscow, Elena filmed some fantastic content. We have a guest today. Core cones, those very things that are always confused with warts. By the way, I also have videos about warts, and I'll definitely leave a link to them. And now let's get back to our corns. The most important thing is to distinguish a wart from a plantar corn, because the way they work is completely different. They have different principles. In our case, it's a corn, so we're going to remove it. We remove them with mechanical treatment and we cauterize them. To remove a plantar corn, you definitely need tools. It's very difficult to do this at home. Well, first of all, a person is unlikely to have access to this part of the body the way someone else would. A specialist would. And even if you somehow manage to sit in a weird position, maybe you practice yoga often, even if you somehow manage to do it, it's unlikely you'll be able to set them correctly yourself. Because you should only trim the skin that you no longer need, the skin that's already like this, slightly yellowish. That is dead skin cells that unfortunately don't just disappear, start to accumulate there. Because it's their accumulation in one specific spot that causes discomfort or even pain. So a person feels as if they're walking on little stones or peas, like the princess and the pea. Maybe that will make it clearer for you. So in order to remove this very core corn, it needs to be mechanically removed. This isn't the only way to treat such corns, but it's the method we use. That's why you'll need good sharp nippers. In this case, I see my cuticle nippers are being used. Yes, we really do this often because we have a high flow of clients in the salon and don't always have the right nippers on hand. So you work with whatever you have. They get dull faster because of this, but you can use them once in a while anyway. It's like a little life hack. Of course, it's better to use the special ones. As you can see, the piece of skin isn't small and it's not nearly as soft as the cuticle, so you really need special tools for everything. It's just to work faster and with better quality. You will also definitely need special tweezers that have these special grooves which we'll use to grab the callus so it doesn't slip out. And sometimes you need to stretch the skin a bit to finish cutting it. And of course, after we've completely removed all the core calluses, and honestly, I've lost count of how many there are here. There are just so many of them. It's really a lot. Of course, after this, we'll need to keep working because even though we've cut them off and removed them, but if the pressure on this part of the foot doesn't stop, the calluses will keep forming again and again. Clients may complain that you're a bad specialist for not helping them, but that's not the point. Calluses are merely a consequence. You need to eliminate the cause. In our case, it's the cause. Let's determine the cause. Tell me about the client's history. So she lived her life, everything was going well for her, and then she had 2 children. And most of the time she spends at home either in slippers or barefoot because she's taking care of them. She's a mom on maternity leave. And of course she won't wear any orthopedic shoes or insoles because most of the time she's in slippers. That's why we advised her to go to an orthopedic store and get some orthopedic slippers for home. Can you imagine nowadays they even have things like that? In other words, slippers that help redistribute the load on your feet. Sometimes they are either anatomical or have some kind of gel inserts. It's a really cool thing. I have similar slippers, but I bought mine at Crocs. Well, you know, it's a store with rubber shoes, but they're really, really cool there. And it's great because when you come home, your feet really get to relax, even if you've had a super busy day. They have cool shoes, insoles, and everything you need for your feet to feel good there. Still, after a whole day in closed shoes, you get tired. Coming home in the evening and enjoying some awesome slippers is really the cherry on top. Mine even have a massaging effect with these little bumps. Because ideally we should have suggested that she use some offloading. These are the pieces of special rubberized foam that we usually cut out. But we understand that she simply won't have time for that. She's a mom on maternity leave with 2 kids, so honestly, what kind of meal preps are we talking about? She'll just end up ignoring them at some point, and she honestly admitted that to us. And that's something we need to take into account as well. Well, we try to adapt to each client and choose a way to solve the problem that will be the most doable and optimal for her or for him. That's why we decided to use these transparent patches, hydrofilm I think they're called. Anyway, I'll leave a link. I always forget what they're called. These things, like stickers, are even used after tattoos. If anyone has gotten a tattoo, you know they cover it with these cool patches now. And it's very convenient to put some kind of cream or ointment under them. In our case, it was bio-wax, so it would create a sort of cushioning layer, if you will, and help the tissues heal and close up faster. By the way, that was just one foot. We actually have two more, by the way, core corns. Specifically in this area, we most likely should be told about flat feet, but of course a pedicure specialist can't diagnose flat feet. Or so-called podologists nowadays, which we supposedly are. That was all said in quotation marks. Basically, we have no right to make any diagnoses at all because we're simply not doctors. For something like that, you should refer the client to an orthopedic doctor. I have a lengthy, in-depth video on this subject, including a recording of an appointment I had with the orthopedic doctor I visited personally. And in that video, everything is shown, how the foot is examined on the plantar scope, how the areas with the highest or lowest pressure are identified, and so on. I highly recommend watching it because then you'll understand why you need to see an orthopedic doctor and how important it is. In that video, Arthur Tudge, an orthopedic doctor, and I explained everything in great detail and very specifically. I'll leave a link to him as well. So let's go ahead, watch it, and come to understand why we need an orthopedic doctor. Consider visiting an orthopedic doctor to get a comprehensive assessment and advice regarding your legs. On the plantar scope, then, which is a device you stand on, your feet are illuminated. It's pretty cool, and you can see how you step on your feet. In general, they'll definitely tell you what's wrong with your feet there. And it's exactly these kinds of tests that will help when making insoles. By the way, I also plan to get a plantar scope for the salon because I think it's a must-have. As far as I know, it costs about 30,000. Well, I think it's quite a significant amount, of course, but still the equipment is really necessary. It's not something you should try to save money on because with a plantar scope, we can clearly show the client that they really do need some additional support in the form of insoles. Insoles are a whole separate topic. I know and understand that insoles cost money. If you just go to an orthopedic store, they start at about 2,000 rubles. If they're custom made, like the ones they made for me in that video, it's around 8,000 rubles. But, I want to tell you that, of course, you can't buy health for any amount of money. And when you really have no choice, if you constantly have pain in your feet or those stubborn corns and so on, of course, you'll go and get them made. And they can't be cheap because they're brought from somewhere, who knows, from across some border. I mean, from abroad. They're manually adjusted for you by an orthopedic doctor who properly places these individual supports. And after that, your feet stop hurting. To right, and I usually walk a lot around Moscow. And since I'm not used to it, my right leg absolutely always hurts. I have some issues with the ligaments there. And let it be the way we made these insoles. My leg stopped hurting even though I kept rushing around the city like crazy. My foot used to roll inward a bit and that gave me the wrong kind of pressure, which caused problems with my ligaments. That's how easily everything gets solved. I think it's better to spend 8,000 rubles and then walk comfortably rather than suffer and regret that money. Well, in general, that's all I have to say about my story. Thank you all so much for watching. I always look forward to your likes and comments. Also, be sure to watch the episode Taught, where Lena and it's already been published, so you can check it out. It was a live broadcast. There, I'll be talking about Lena, about 300,000 subscribers, and about everything. Well, for now, we're wrapping up the client and sending them off for recovery. This was Alyona at work, Yelena's master. Take care of yourselves, your nails and feet. Bye.